Thanks for sending this out. You guys are awesome. Got a lot of hate mail and jealousy swung my way. It's like,
Fuck those
sure,
guys
we
who
could
deserve
buy
it.
them if they stop giving stuff to you.
Hey, welcome to Super Social Club. I'm Jeremy.
This is Whiskey in the Six. I'm Rob.
Welcome to the Whisky Rant Podcast.
It's a little crusty,
It's frustrating.
and it's going to be a little bit of a rant.
I don't understand it. I don't know why.
Some sort of injustice.
Anyway, end rant.
Hello and welcome back to the Whisky Rant Podcast. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Rob.
Tonight we're joined yet again by James and Jenna from Sons of Vancouver, one of the most popular distilleries in Canada right now.
Yeah. Selling out every single time.
I mean, you
put something
cannot
out.
get your hands on this stuff except for us. That we do have actually one of their releases that's yet to come out, and we're going to talk about tonight. James, Jenna, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having us, guys.
This is
Always a pleasure.
this is like one of those when an author is about to release a highly anticipated book,
Right.
and we get the pre-read.
We get like the screening.
Yeah,
The
like we
first-
get yes,
we see
exactly.
it. We get to see the
Yeah.
film before the rest of
I
the.
love that.
the
I love
We're gonna
that.
do a little talk at Barnes and Noble next week, and then we'll model
Book tour.
Yeah,
I just
normally-
I kind of expected a signature. I was a little bit disappointed when I didn't see one, but it's all good.
I'll sign the
No.
next one for you.
Rob would, yeah, Rob, you don't want to.
Yeah.
I just honestly, I'm actually just kidding about that.
All right, so this
I don't know how you guys feel about signatures on bottles. I'm not
you've made
sure.
fun of distillers that
I've-
have
I've-
done that before.
I apologize if you've done it, but I have made fun of distillers for doing it because there's a few that just like make it their job to like sign every bottle. Like,
Yeah.
so I mean,
We've
anyway,
only done it like once for someone who was like buying a bottle for a 50th birthday or something.
Yeah.
yeah.
And like it made them happy. But
Oh,
yeah.
by all means, like if someone comes to you and says, "Can you please sign my bottle?" I think that's
Yeah,
very
yeah,
different.
sure. Yeah.
But it's like, hey, I'm gonna sign your bottle just because, and I'm gonna sign a
Or-
whole bunch of bottles. These are,
Yeah, you're like at the LCBO and someone like, oh, someone scribbled all over this bottle. I don't want this.
Mark, rub it
Yeah.
off. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll let you share what we have on the table over here because you guys made them. So let's start with, I guess, no, should we start with just kind of the story behind this? I know we did talk about this the last time you guys were on the chat that this was gonna happen, but this was before it actually happened. So since then, release one of your series came out, and now we have release two in front of us. You want to quickly just
Yeah, it's been a long time in the making. It was a concept that we came up with and sort of had kicked around for a while, talked about it, figure out how to do it. But, having a distillery and like having a big sort of collection of barrels, we get the great opportunity to taste a lot of whiskey. And when you go through barrels, it's a really interesting thing that happens that like they all end up kind of tasting different from one another. Like a lot of them are similar when they've come off the still around the same time or when you're like fermenting them the same way, but the grain, the fermentation, and then the barrel itself all have sort of equal part to play in what the whiskey tastes like. And so when we taste barrels, every so often you come across a barrel and you go, oh, that one tastes like cherry, or you come across one and it's like, oh, that one's so banana-y. And it was always something that like we loved to do, and it was an experience that we loved to have. And we were like, well, how could we make that experience happen, for the whiskey drinker? And so the way that we thought about doing that was sort of how, like, let's do this exploration of rye grain and really come up with these like very technical whiskeys that would give you a really unique flavor experience with each whiskey. And so we no barrel finishing, no added flavoring, not that we do that anyway, but we wanted to be very transparent with these whiskeys and just say, like, this is exactly what went into them. Like, all of these flavors that you're tasting are all from fermentation, distillation, maturation in the barrel. And so there's no tricks involved. This is just like we've done things and we've fermented and distilled things in a way to evoke the flavors that you're tasting in the whiskeys. And so the first one, we sort of did like a very true to the house style of Sons of Vancouver, which tends to have these big orange notes, lots of like coriander from our French Saison yeast. And then the second one is like these huge dark fruit notes. We used a different yeast in that one, forbidden fruit. So you end up with like cacao and cherries and chocolate and stuff. And it was super wild how much that tasted like Black Forest cake. So we believe that rye grain should be for Canada as malt is for Scotland. And so that's sort of where we're going with this, that like rye isn't just peppery and spicy. It can be a lot of different things. And yeah, that's sort of the idea behind Realms of Rye.
And
What
honestly,
I'd like to add about this is that these are very conscious blends where we've worked within those parameters that Jenna talked about, the barrel, the rye, the finishing. But they're not single barrel, which is what you see a lot from like the bourbon industry. We kind of wanted to walk the line of where like sort of independent bottler meets distiller.
nice. Is there a few different casks in these ones, or is it two for each of them?
Yeah, so we sort of like went through and we found casks that sort of had these interesting flavors to them, and then you sort of blend into that direction. And so you find other casks that have things to add, or like sometimes one distillation gets split into multiple casks and then those get married together.
Right.
So release number one, I believe it was three or four. Yeah. And then I think release number two is two different casks. Yeah, so we tend to stay away from single casks in general because I just don't believe that it's always the best expression that a whiskey can have. You
Right.
know, like if you think about it, like the way that you taste whiskey out of the cask is usually like a little bit scraggly sometimes, and like you can do things to the whiskey via blending that sort of like sometimes smooths out those edges a little bit, or like brings out a really interesting note, or like add some mouthfeel to it. So yeah, blending is a tool that we love to use and that like we've really built our reputation around.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it shows your strength because I mean, release one is citrus and botanicals, and that's pretty much exactly what you get in release one. And then release two is literally nailed right on the head with dark fruit and cacao. And that's like as soon as I opened the bottle, I just finished a very long 3-day fast, and I was only able to smell the bottle, but I wanted to pour out a couple samples so that we had a chance to open it up a little bit. And this one, like right out of the bottle, smelled amazing.
Yeah, I've got the addition to here, the cacao. And it's like on the nose, you're getting this like glorious, sweet it kind of reminds me honestly of like one of the best like Foursquare rums that I've ever smelled. Like the
Yeah.
nose is kind of similar to that. And then on the palate, all the rye comes through. And you do get these like plum, juicy kind of like notes and the chocolate in there. Now, you guys, I think you said that you've used a different yeast strain for this second edition here. James, did you have I think when we first talked, I think it was you that said that you had the beer making background.
Yeah. Yeah.
How weird is it to change a yeast strain in a distillery? Like, I don't think we hear too much about other distilleries ever changing their yeast. Like, they just have one yeast strain.
Yeah.
And they stick to it for
like Foursquare
hundreds of
has, or no,
years.
Four Roses, sorry, has like the four, I think,
Right.
yeast strands that they stick to for their, I think.
Mhm.
I could be wrong. There might be more. But for the most part, most distilleries use like one, maybe two tops, right?
Is it weird changing it up? Is it easy to do? Like, what's the process in changing a yeast?
I mean, like most of them act relatively the same. Maybe like 10 or 20% of them have have different parameters that they might work within. Often it's like more recently, actually, you get these funky ones that are like they have incredibly high temperature tolerances, and so they actually work better where it's like it's really hot or something like that, where typically you need to keep a yeast below 20 degrees. Um, the hardest part, to be honest with you, is that when you make something, you make a whiskey, you put it away, you're not going to try it for 4 or 5 years. You want to be innovative all the time. I walk in with these stupid ideas, and Jenna and Max have to we have to reel each other in and be like, just remember, if you change something right now, we're not even going to get to try it for like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So maybe like in a year, if we do 100 barrels of production, probably only 20% of what we produce is like falls into like experimental barrels.
Mhm.
And then when we do something like this, like this Realms of Rye 2, that was an experimental yeast that we did when Jenna came on early, like sort of around 2021. Now we're seeing the fruits of that, so to speak. And if we want to add that to our production, it's going to cut out even some more of that experimental production and narrow that down again. If we want to do 1 or 2 batches of that every year to put away, like, sure, I guess to answer your question, it's difficult, but it's difficult for maybe not the reasons you're thinking of.
Yeah, when you're looking at like yeast for distilling, it's a little bit different than brewing in that you're concerned with like alcohol tolerance, how much alcohol you're going to get out of it because like, you put it in a still and then what comes out at the end is high proof. If you're using a yeast that doesn't create a lot of alcohol, then you're going to end up with less alcohol and less of a yield. And so like there's budgetary stuff that goes in with it. I think where people, we're a small distillery, and so we have the luxury of being able to do that experimental stuff and sort of like try stuff out. And then sort of figure out later, like, okay, where is this going to land in our sort of portfolio? So yeah, we tend to look at like when we do the experimental stuff a couple times a year, we tend to look at, okay, is this yeast going to do well? Is it going to make good whiskey, and is it going to make good alcohol? And then those are the yeasts that we try out. Like we wouldn't start using like an IPA yeast or something like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's times where we do stuff and like it kind of doesn't pan out. This was one I talked about it. I don't know if I included the letters that came with it with yours, but
Yeah.
I talked about it in the letter that came with it that like this fermented and it smelled amazing, and then it came off the still and we were a little underwhelmed by it because a lot of those fruit notes had sort of disappeared a bit. And then we put it away in a barrel, and about like a year after it was in there, all of those notes came back that we were looking for. And so it's a little bit of the magic in the barrel of like, there's all these acids that are interacting with the tannins in the wood and stuff, and then you end up with what you end up with in the end. And so sometimes we put it in and it's not so great, and sometimes we put it in and it's like it knocks it out of the park. And this was one where as soon as we tried it, like a year or two after, we were like, this is going to be such a good whiskey when it came out. And so we did the Realms of Rye, and we were sort of earmarking barrels in our collection. Like this one right away, I was like, this has to be.
I actually kind of feel like, correct me if I'm wrong on this, that I feel like this distillate sort of brought the Realms of Rye idea together.
Yeah, that might be true.
Like we've done over 500 distillations, and so they all kind of become a blur.
Yeah.
But I remember this one so clearly. It was not the entire run, but there was a section of the run that was like plum brandy coming off.
Yeah.
It was, and it's 100% rye grain. It was so wild.
Yeah.
And then at the end, we collected it all and like, put it together and then split it between like whatever, like 3 or 4 barrels. And we were like, that's a little underwhelming. But after a year, it all came back together. And it was
I was actually going to ask you that question. When you came up with the Realms of Rye, like I feel like the first one was awesome. I think there's stuff in your like that I've tried from you guys that is like just as good as the first one. Very like, on like I guess that's exactly what you explained. It's very similar to some of the stuff that you would produce regularly. And then when I tasted this one and smelt this, or at least when I smelt it, right away I could tell that, okay, I totally understand the vision now because this is completely different than any other rye I've ever tried before. It's way more chocolate forward. It's way different, especially on the nose. On the palate, you start to like, oh, okay, I remember you. Like you kind of like taste the rye a little bit, but on the nose, I guarantee you 99% of people would not peg that as a rye.
No, it's really crazy, and like the cast type you use here, it says right on the back of the label, one ex bourbon and one new oak. Um, yeah, like now this has been sitting
I don't
out.
know if it means that it's one and one. It just means that those were the barrels involved,
Oh
right?
yeah, so can you clarify?
Yeah,
Is that
They weren't equal proportions.
they
Right.
started out in ex bourbon, and then they were married into new
okay?
oak barrels.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and like now that this has been sitting for 20, 30 minutes, it's just all cocoa powder
Yeah.
on the nose. It's like it's so delicious.
Yeah, it does change a bit when it's like sitting out.
And
I'm-
you would think that this might have been finished in some kind of other barrel, right?
Yeah.
That's not just ex bourbon or new oak. It feels and tastes and noses like it's been finished in something else.
In like some sort of like really
I would say rum cask, but
rum cask or like even like a second use like PX cask almost like it has that kind of like vibe.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's what it is, but it just kind of has that like which it's really really cool on the nose. I really really like it. I can't wait till this is like about halfway because small batch releases tend to like just really show their true colors when they're about halfway down the bottle for me.
and what's the ABV of this?
At 59 point something.
Yeah, you guys are always just
59.9.
59.9.
And then the other one's six in the 60s, is it not?
Yeah, I think that one's just above.
I think that was 59 as
Oh,
well.
59.4. Yeah, yeah. 59.4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they drink way, way less.
Yeah.
They drink like a high 40% ABV whiskey.
Yeah. And okay, so for those of you that don't know, like we're kind of just having a conversation here, forgetting that there's other people that might be listening to this at some point. That just, I mean, I think that's kind of like on brand for you guys. Like Sons of Vancouver has
Have you
become
guys
like
started recording?
yeah. No, and what I mean by that is like you guys have kind of become like almost like a cult like following. There's like it's just this camaraderie, like a friendship almost. Everybody I talk to that has talked to you guys just kind of feels that vibe. Like you guys are just good peoples. So anyway, I digress. But on the
Awful
back
nice
of these bottles,
Very tough.
on the back of these
Obviously, you don't know
bottles,
us very well.
yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I know we've actually only spoken like twice. But so on the back of these bottles, you guys put a lot of information, which is like perfect for the whiskey geek like us.
Yeah.
You
That
know,
was the goal, was just like complete transparency. I mean, one of the critiques that we always have about Canadian whiskey is that there's not enough information and there's not enough transparency.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
so
we're with
we
you.
wanted you to know like everything about this. How did we get from grain to glass?
Mhm.
Yeah, just like we're geeks, and so we're just like, what do we want to see on a bottle? And that's sort of what guides us. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
we probably mentioned this like when we spoke about it before, but for anyone just joining, like the idea really in this series, Realms of Rye, is to explore the areas of the flavor wheel that rye doesn't normally end up in. And in total, there'll probably be 5 or 6 realms of rye.
Okay.
We have a number of barrels earmarked, and we'll see how it comes together.
Nice. One
Yeah.
cool thing about the information on the back is the fermentation length, which you don't really hear too many people talk about that. Like you guys have mentioned last time we spoke that, you have a fermentation time that's longer than most places. 8 days, it says here. You said you're usually like around a week to a week and a half or so.
Sure.
Is that still something that is still you're sticking to with that? I know before you said you tried to shorten it at one time and it didn't quite work out for you, but you're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
sticking to the long fermentation times. Yeah.
We shortened it that 1 month of like March 2022 or
Yeah,
something.
I don't think we'll ever do it
I
again.
never did it.
It made
Yeah.
such a dramatic difference, and like we probably could have cranked out more whiskey, but it would have been not as good whiskey. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think fermentation and yeast style is so overlooked in distilling. It's such a crucial part of flavor development. And I think most distilleries, like when you're looking at commercial distilleries, they're looking at economics, right? Like it's the economics of scale, and so like you're trying to get the most bang for your buck at all times, which I think is possible to do while still experimenting. We get really good yields in our distillery, and you know, old James over here is always looking at the the bank draft, the balance sheet. So yeah, we get really good efficiency and really good results from all of these yeasts. Um, it's one of the factors that we take into account when we're trying out stuff. I mean, I think the French saison is something that we sort of hang our hat on, and is really quite key to the style of whiskey that we make. But yeah, things even like you know, open versus closed top fermentation, or like fermentation length, fermentation temperature, like all of those things go into changing what a whiskey tastes like in the end. And so those things all have to be thought about. And so being small, you can sort of like play around with those things and figure out where you want to go, or like experiment a little bit. So this is us doing that a little bit. And then also just an ode to rye, because we love rye so much, and it should really be more talked about in Canada. We all refer to it as rye, but do we actually like talk about the grain and talk about what it does for whiskey?
Yeah, if I was talking to somebody and trying to describe what a rye was and they'd never had one before, like I think most people would fall back on like, baking spices,
Mhm.
spicy cloves, vanilla,
Yeah.
maybe bicycle tire,
Yeah,
and like that's what rye in Canada has been for fucking 100 years.
and those are all
Yeah.
like phenolics that come from higher fermentation temperatures. Like if you ferment at a specific way, then you're going to get a super spicy mash. If you ferment at a lower temperature, then it's going to be a lot different. And then if you take yeast into that, then it's going to be completely different. So
Is there gonna be you guys have something that says apricot in one of your release, upside down apricot cake or something
yeah,
like
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we could.
maybe peaches instead. You go with like a peaches and dill or something.
We've talked about like where we're going with the other areas of the flavor wheel. We know for sure you'll probably see a like green, minty, plant focused one, because
Mhm.
that's you see that so much in our whiskey. That's a pretty easy barrel to pick out of our collection.
So much rye has like that grassy note
Yeah.
that you can
For
pull
sure.
off.
Yeah, we have like a very big like sort of like minty chlorophyll that you get sometimes, which is really interesting. We've talked about maybe doing one that's a tropical one, but not palm trees, because I think a lot of people think palm trees is tropical only because it goes in the rum cask.
Right.
And it's actually like we pick casks that are tropical to begin with, and then we
Nice.
enhance them. So it'd be cool to do one where like the rum cask isn't there, but it's still super tropical. We talked about a mineral one, which I think would be the most difficult to find in our collection, but you do see it sometimes. It's like pencil shavings and graphite and like stone, like slate.
In the way that like Midwest ryes sometimes are very like they taste like they've been like diluted with hard water or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like a
like the
mineral
calcium or something.
Calcium, yeah.
Whistle pig often has a minerality to it. With
Yeah.
shavings, it's pretty signature.
I think this collection, like when it's complete, like once you've like, okay, we've done what we're planning on doing, you're gonna have this like library of rye whiskeys that are gonna be on the far ends of the flavor spectrum. Like this stuff being 100% rye, like you don't get any of these flavors with 100% rye that we've ever tried before.
No.
It is really, really, really cool.
These two are already drastically
Right?
different.
Yeah.
Drastically different.
Yeah.
They're both delicious. I keep going back to like I'm trying to decide which one I like better. I think fresh crack, I'd probably give it to the cacao, the new one. Because fresh crack, I liked the citrus and botanicals, but I didn't get as much of it when I opened it. But now like it's hardcore citrus and botanicals. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I've already finished my cacao one and just this is all I have left. So
Yeah.
last time we spoke, we were talking about sourcing rye, and you guys said that you had contracted a farmer in BC to supply you with like entire yield. Is that coming to harvest soon, or has it already come to harvest, or how long away is that?
Funny story. We got a phone call from the farmer in the fall, I guess like basically a year ago. And he was like so the snow landed before I got the seed in. Guess we'll have to do it next year. And we've been like expecting this rye like the following spring. So we had to make do this year. It was a pretty hard year for rye in British Columbia, but it is in the ground. I can send you guys some photos. Yeah.
Yeah, we did an Instagram like in August, I think, or September, that it just got sold.
Yeah, so we should be like getting distilling, I guess, the first grain probably by May.
Yeah, so
April
like
or May, yeah.
not quite sure how that's gonna look. Like, will that be the only rye that we use? Will that be like estate rye or something like that? We're not quite sure yet, but the first plan is to just get it and mash it.
See how it goes.
See how it goes. Yeah.
See how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah. So the last time we spoke, you guys shared how much you were barreling at that time, and it's been about 8 months since then. Has there been an increase in volume of barrels, or like what are you guys hovering in at around now per month?
I mean, it really fluctuates year by year. 2021 we went hard and did like I think prior to that we'd done like 20 barrels total.
25. Oh, we did 25 in 2019.
Yeah. And then like 2021 we did 80. And then I think the next year we did about the same. We shoot for around 60 every year. And then it usually fluctuates somewhere around there depending on like cash flow and stuff like that. But yeah, we put away a lot of whiskey in 2023 because we did that Indiegogo campaign. Had a lot of people back us and really helped with just putting down a ton of whiskey because we had such demand for it. Yeah, we switched over to full size barrels at some point. We were doing 100-liter barrels, and now we're at 200, or for American people it's 30 gallons. Now we're at 53 gallons, so industry standard, which is nice. Yeah, we basically like max out how much booze we can make every year. And like our liqueurs and other products like compete with that a little bit. If we're selling more quad sec or more amaretto, then we're gonna have to do more neutral spirit. But we've been trying to pare down that stuff so that we can do more whiskey. So
it's always my goal to get it to 100 barrels per year.
Never done it.
Sometimes we're in the 70s. Gonna go to the Victoria Whiskey Fest this year?
We didn't. No,
No,
we never make it out that way for any of these fests. I'm dying to, but
yeah, you can come out for Victoria. It's a good one.
Yeah.
Tickets go on sale like in like 2 weeks or something.
Yeah, we should stay with Trenny and see.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
We just show up at their door.
I'm staying at Chetty's house.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's like, hey, we're here for the festival.
Yeah, maybe we'll save the weeded rye chat for the next time we link up. We're gonna do like once we have our main sale, we'll do a lot of promo for that.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, we could do that. Or I mean, do you want to just quick? Is there a quick little teaser that you guys can share about what's coming in the new year?
Yeah, we've got. We're looking at doing our first mainstay SKU. Everyone's always like, when are you gonna have a whiskey on the shelf all the time? yeah, it's gonna be a weeded rye. We really want to start that category in Canada. You see weeded bourbons all the time. I want a vanilla bomb weeded rye, and so
Nice.
that's sort of where that's coming from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very
And
cool.
this like that mass vanilla that always comes with wheat, when you pair it with like the spice of rye, you end up with this like marzipan
Nice.
sometimes. Like, yeah, it's just magic.
Yeah,
Awesome.
we're coming out with a new whiskey uh, at the same time as Realms of Rye #2, and that one's kind of like a test launch of weeded rye.
It's like a cask strength version of the mainstay that will
Okay.
eventually come.
Yeah,
Nice. That's awesome.
It's a 28% wheat or something.
yeah, it's really
Very cool.
74% rye, so you do the math the other way.
Okay. Very exciting.
Yeah. So tell everybody where they can find this stuff, when they can find this stuff. I had an Instagram post. It's still up there. People can check it out and find the website. But why don't you guys share that here so that people not on Instagram can know as well?
You bet. The Realms of Rye 1 is currently sold out in Canada, but you are able to get it on sharedpour.com in the US.
actually that's not true. It's going to be in Alberta.
It'll be in Alberta on store shelves.
It's sold out in BC. There's like 3 bottles left in the States from sharedpour.com. And then we had 5 cases that we reserved because we knew we were going to be going into Alberta. So I'm going to be at the Banff Whiskey Experience.
Nice.
And
End of November?
End of November, speaking on a panel there. And we made sure to save some so that we would have both of these Realms of Rye, 5 cases of it going to Alberta. So there'll be some for sale at Banff Whiskey Experience if you're going there. And then it's going to make its way into liquor stores. We're not sure which ones yet, but we'll probably post that on our Instagram at some point.
Nice.
And then Realms of Rye #2 is coming out December 7th. We always tell people, but like the only way to get our whiskey basically is to go on our website, sign up for our mailing list, and then whenever there's an on sale, you'll get an email shot out to you. We usually try and give people some notice, but yeah, that's the best way to get it. I will say Realms of Rye, like a little bit higher priced bottle, so it doesn't quite sell out as crazily as the others. Like it sells out, but like you got a little bit more time. So if like you're one of those people that keeps complaining to us that you can't get our whiskey, this one, like, there's a good bet that you can get a bottle if you're there right when it goes on sale.
If you're there at the Banff Whiskey Festival
Or
on
at the
one
festival,
weekend.
yeah.
There was a few people that said, "Oh, you know, I can never get their whiskey," and then Realms 1 came out and they hesitated on it. They heard how good it was after the fact, and because they hesitated on it, they didn't get it. And you know what? That's on them. This time, don't
Yeah.
hesitate because this one is really, really good.
Yeah,
Well, I
the
mean,
Realms of
like
Rye.
the regular releases that we do, like the regular design and bottle, those guys are like sometimes an hour, sometimes 2 minutes. Like it depends on how many bottles we have available for each release.
Yeah,
Realms
those
of
single
Rye are
malts,
like-
those
yeah,
single
those
malts
ones
went
are gone fast.
quick.
Yeah.
You should see
I-
the emails.
Oh my God, people were so mad. Yeah.
I think I went on after a half hour and it was gone. I was
Yeah.
like,
Hour, that's crazy.
But Realms of Rye, it was on our website for about a week.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you slept on it, I'm sorry, but you had like 7 days to get it.
Yeah.
It's not much time, but it's not 2 minutes, you know?
no, exactly.
Yeah, don't sleep on this one. It is fantastic.
That's right.
Link in the description down below. Go to Sons of Vancouver website, sign up for their newsletter, and get notified of when it goes on sale and pick up yourself a bottle.
Is it douchey if we buy another bottle of it? Like
No.
if we like just sign on real quick and buy a bottle?
Oh, because the people like, oh, you already have one.
Because we already have
Share
one.
the wealth.
Yeah.
I'll make sure to autograph.
Yeah, if I see your name
Yeah,
come
that
up.
one I want you to sign. Yeah.
As long as you can sign it for us. James and Jenna, thank you so much again for joining us. This has been awesome. Really much appreciated.
Well, great chat with you guys.
It's been great, guys.
Cheers.
Talk to you soon.
Cheers.